I watched this evening episode of Palestinian Deep Dive, which was interesting in particular ways that were um, above and beyond, if it's possible to put it that way, the issue of trauma for children in Gaza, which was its primary focus. There was a question of language anthropology, which is just simply a matter of getting what words mean right. And the topic that they discussed was the difference between resilience and simud. It was curious because the words that they settled on to describe the difference between resilience and simud um, had similar problems that they didn't go into. They were admittedly very difficult problems. The linguistic anthropology is academically knowledge based. It's a very difficult subject to get your mind around. There's, for example, an alphabet for all sounds that the human vocal cords can make to help describe languages that haven't been comprehended because they're Aborigine languages, for example. And it's a linguistic alphabet code. The language-based issues of finding direction, for example, some um, languages use reference points very differently from English language. And issues of tenses, for example, the emphasis of, there's a famous TED talks about how Chinese use of future tenses leads them to save money more because they're conscientiously focused on the existence of the future in ways that we aren't. And resilience was considered to be dehumanizing because it created this. I know you'll start barking about the Superman of Ouspensky and John Lennon being dehumanized by association. It's not what they were talking about. And it should be pointed out that John Lennon was the person who role played the Superman in the Ouspensky scenario. Those were Ouspensky's people who were working with King Crimson. So it's pointless to try to put it off on me, which they will anyway because they're murderers. And that's not what the Palestinians were doing. But if you look at, um, it's more Temple University's museum thieves who tortured me. And they made up a seance of Yoko Ono race reasonings because Yoko Ono wanted to stoke race hatred from me. So she found an Indian woman and she dressed her like with the pockets of Ronnie Zazinski. And she was an ally of Reagan, and Reagan supposedly was the wholly innocent of everything. You shan't name him or Tune will give you AIDS, is their storyline now. And Clint Eastwood will work as enforcer. And they use Hitler's mirror system. So the person looks into the mirror who has HIV and says, "We want to see the white in the mirror." And these are people who were betrayed by a spider on the fly conception that came from Watton, maker of the Venus flytrap on Mount Desert Island. It was black on black atrocity, the way Rwanda was black and black atrocity. But you know what? How they had a cow dog who would gnaw hooves and get it out of his system, right? So that's what they did with the white. They threw the white as a bone to the blockaders. And this was all in the spider and the fly mentality. Steve Langer wrote a poem called The Spider and the Fly. It's the idea that the Jew is caught in the spider web. And he says, I want to live, I want to live. And all the Nazis and the spiders gargle, ha ha, he wants to live. And that's not what these Palestinians were doing. It's evoked by the idea of resilient Superman being dehumanized, because you know how what a poacher and opportunist Yoko Ono is. But they started banging on about the collective. And the collective is even worse when it comes to the way it's misused than resilience is. I mean, it was a very interesting lecture. I urge you to watch it on the problems that come with distancing yourself by seeing the Palestinians as we will survive this, resilient people, so that you can distance yourself from the floods getting into the tents of the children, the old women asking for their daughters and their grandchildren who are all gone, the genocide belief that you get from saying, oh, they're resilient people. It's an interesting lecture. But if you look at the way this evolved and the issue of Palestinian complicity in the sandbaggers, because everybody who went along with the AIDS attack is now crying foul about Gaza. And they're all sided with Yoko Ono in the AIDS attack. All of them did. Abby Martin did, Owen Jones did, George Galloway did, Garland Nixon did. It just goes on and on and on and on. And they're never going to bother explaining why. Never. If you look at the way the Black Panthers worked in Peter Shell at Carnegie Mellon University, Bobby Seale has a barbecue book, right? And they come up with Let's Have a Barbecue. And The Burning Buddhas was the name of Pete Shell's idea for a band. The advertisement with Let's Have a Barbecue. And that was 1994 when I was warning people that the Israelis were out for revenge for Auschwitz. That's what it said. There's no mistaking what I put in the newspaper. Revenge for Auschwitz. The three words side by side in my complaint about Gail Burstyn. Highlighted. Revenge for Auschwitz. No Palestinian at Carnegie Mellon mistook that. But they were surrounded with pig faces and put, let's have a barbecue. And what do? They name a street Aaron Bushnell Street because this guy comes along and he lights himself on fire. And the fly is the Pope, is the Christian, is the Winston Churchill dressed in drag who used to be a British flag. The fly and is going to learn you. And Donald Toon says we will fine-tune this to issues of the collective. And Seattle and UW Dialectical try to regroup, We'll plant marijuana in the queer bait. We'll laugh at him over bingo tickets that he can't hear play. Oh, ho, ho, ho. In promotion of Donald Trump. This is the NAACP scorecard in genocides. And the reason they said I was interfering was because I was pleased to participate in the divestment, knowledge-based arguments for the abolition of profiteering from apartheid South Africa. And I was interfering because I was supposed to play the dumb white. We didn't make you deaf for no reason. And they claim I stole a book. I didn't, and they know I did. They know I signed out the book and was just overwhelmed. They failed me so far more than I failed them. They say, oh, you take a union man's discipline insignia when you made it, and it going to sit too well with them. They refused to teach me sign language, so I couldn't go to school. And if I get out of line by asserting my agency as an anti-apartheid knowledge-based argument, it means I'm trying to swindle them of rightful due for my hard work and injuries. And this is the collective being resilient, showing sumud at Granger Morgan's alternative conflict resolution, with the Green Party around Mertz celebrating at high pace a feminist philosophy journal and getting intoned by the riffraff of Seattle's NAACP, getting cheered and intoned. We will intone for you on the queer bait fly in the spider web. Let's have a barbecue. Was 1994. Aaron Bushnell was 2023. But it's the same mindset that the sandbaggers used to refuse to address what happened with Gail Burstyn and to lie, repeat, lie for John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And their alibi is, if we were lying, queerball, we were only lying to ourselves in the name of the greater swindle of the Sumud collective. And you're supposed to hold hands and resonate to that. Don't you resonate to that?